This is introduction and course overview, computer and network security, the first unit. So in this course total 15 units are there, all are theory, and some places it is some calculations, encryption and decryption and security, and some examples. So completely based on examples, this is very easy to understand this course. So the first unit is introduction and course overview. So in this, the first 6 units, up to 6 units, we will go for the mid exam. So after 6 units, and the rest we will see for the final. And in this course, we have one is for 2 assignments and 1 mid exam and 1 final exam. So assignments is, one assignment is you have to write a program for encryption and decryption. How it is, I will explain that while we are teaching, while we are going for the lecture for encryption and decryption time. And based on that encryption and decryption, you people have to develop a normal simple code, and if you can give some letter for encryption, if you can click, it will go for the decryption. So that will be, you can use any of the C or C++ or Java or Visual Basic or whatever it is. Just you have to develop a small program for encryption and decryption. And another is for you have to choose any of the publication paper for network security or computer and network security. You have to choose that particular paper, and you have to try to understand what exactly the encryption, what type of methodology is used in that particular paper. You have to identify, you have to prepare a small presentation based on that particular paper, and you have to explain that particular paper related to computer network security. That is another assignment. So one assignment is encryption and decryption, and the second assignment is you have to choose any of the computer network security publication paper. In that particular paper, you have to identify what exactly that particular paper, what is abstract, what is keywords used on that particular paper, and what exactly the introduction, methodology, and calculations, results and recommendations, and then references, how exactly they are used in that particular paper. You have to understand properly and prepare a normal 10 to 15 slides maximum, and you have to explain. That is the another assignment. So another is mid exam and final exam, and how the marks distribution is, we will discuss the latter. Okay, so now we will go for, so I'm trying to explain this first unit, introduction and course overview. Just try to understand and just give me, is it comfort or not? Okay, so in this introduction and this computer and network security, we are going to use these two types of textbooks. One is computer security by Bishop and network security by Kaufman, Pellman and Spencer. Both will be very easiest to follow the course. And what is computer and network security? Course philosophy and goals, and high level overview of topics. And security is what? Most of the computer science is concerned with achieving desired behavior. In some sense, security is concerned with preventing undesired behavior. Different way of thinking. An enemy, opponent or hacker or adversary may be actively and maliciously trying to circumvent any protective measures you put in place. Of course, right? Because in some sense, security is concerned with preventing undesired behavior and a different way of thinking. Suppose while we are doing the security, so how we are going to, suppose the best example is how we are able to secure in your house in different ways. Suppose somebody is using the security, just normal security guard. Some people, if it is money and everything is there, they are going to be used in placing the CC cameras. And some people, you can use the automatic doors, in different ways we are able to secure your concerns, right? Different way of thinking. An enemy or opponent or hacker, adversary may be actively and maliciously trying to circumvent and protective measures you put in particular place. So another is computer security is focuses on security aspects of systems in isolation. And network security focuses on security data as it is transmitted between network systems. Right? Because if it is a computer security, focuses on security aspects of system in isolation. Suppose if you can see, suppose you are working on any of the desktop or any of the system. Suppose if it is sometimes system is switched on and it is an idle state. So at that particular stage, at that particular point of time, the security is means in isolation stage, background, some particular type of applications is running without knowing your knowledge, right? Because that is at the time of isolation stage, focuses on security aspects of system in isolation, and network security focuses on security of data as it is transmitted between networked systems. So not always a clear cut dividing line, because while you are transferring the data from one network to other network, one system to other systems are in the network transmission, it's going to be the security aspects. So computer and network security. So some examples: computer security is virus secure data storage, operating system security. Network security, authentication protocols, encryption of transmitted data, firewalls. And broader impacts of security is explosive growth of interest in security, most often following notable security failures. And impact of interest from all areas of computer security means theory, especially cryptography, database, operating system, artificial intelligence, learning theory, networking, computer architecture or hardware, programming languages, compilers. So in the different ways, while you are working with the system, while you are working with the applications, while you are working with the database, while you are working with the operating system, while you are working on the networking, architecture, hardware, programming languages, compilers. So in each and every aspect, the impact of security. So philosophy is what? We are not going to be able to cover everything, because if you are saying something, this is correct, but it will, the security breaches will be in different ways. So that's what clearly it's mentioning, that we are not going to able to cover everything in the security. Main goals is exposure to different aspects of security, meant mainly to pique your interest. The mindset of security, a new way of thinking about more than computer networks. Become familiar with basic crypto system acronyms: RSA, SSL, PGP, etc. and buzzwords. So these RSA, SSL, PGP and etc. is going to be discussed while coming to the lectures, because it's specifically we can discuss about those crypto systems. And security is a process, not a product, because the complete computer network security in the security aspects, that is a process, not a product. Why do you saying like that? Means it's a product means if you can purchase something and you can use it in the what exactly it is required, but is a process is continuous system, because we are able to watch continuously in the security. The best example in our country aspects, so the military people is doing what? The security. It's a continuous process. If they are going to stop, so how it is? So that's what security is, a process, not a product. And high level overview. Introduction, including various classes of attacks. Cryptography. Cryptography is not the solution, whole solution, but it is an important part of the solution. Along the way, we will see why cryptography can't solve all security problems. Because cryptography is why it is, this is not the complete solution, but a part of the solution. Along the way, we will see why cryptography can't solve all security problems. And security policies and analysis. Attack trace, access control, confidentiality and integrity, key management, principles for secure design or implementation. And network security, identity, authentication, some real world protocols, wireless security, and miscellaneous firewalls, intrusion detection, buffer overflows, secure programming languages, viruses and malicious logics, etc. etc. So many are there in the high level overview. So based on this, the first, what is meant by introduction for this security? An overview of computer security. Basic components for this computer security is confidentiality, integrity, availability. These three things is completely throughout the course we are going to discuss these three things: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. In computer security, if you know properly these three things and if you can use properly these three components, there is no problem in the security. Because if these three things are works fine, so everything is proper. So what exactly this we are going to listen, we are going to see this. See, first one is the confidentiality. Confidentiality is the concealment of information or resources. The need for keeping information secret arises from the use of computers in sensitive fields such as government and industry. For example, military and civilian institutions in the government often restrict access to information to those who need that information. The first formal work in computer security was motivated by the military's attempt to implement controls to enforce a need to know principle. This principle also applies to industrial firms, which keep their proprietary designs secure lest their competitors try to steal the designs. And as a further example, all types of institutions keep personal records secret. Access control mechanism supports confidentiality. One access control mechanism for preventing confidentiality is cryptography, which scrambles data to make it incomprehensible. A cryptographic key controls access to the unscrambled data, but the cryptographic key itself becomes another jargon to be protected. So the confidentiality is we are using in every part of our life, most of the times, because we are going to be used. Because nowadays the best example is your mobile. What we are using in the mobile is you are able to use your passwords and all those things. That is what it's a confidentiality. So in this particular confidentiality scenario, first it is implemented in the first formal work is computer security was motivated by the military's attempts to implement controls to enforce a need to know principle. This principle also applies to industrial firms which keep their proprietary designs secure lest their competitors try to steal the designs. So suppose if it is any of the organizations, if you go for particular work or something else, before going to join in that particular organization, you people have to sign the confidentiality agreement. What is meant by that confidentiality agreement? Means while you are working in the organization, you are able to obey the rules and regulations of that particular organization. You have to be signed. So that's all simple. If you know that one, this is only the confidentiality. Because access control mechanism support confidentiality. One access control mechanism for preserving confidentiality is cryptography only. So here it is. If you can see the example, enciphering an income tax return will prevent anyone from reading it. If the owner needs to see the return, it must be deciphered. Only the possessor of the cryptographic key can enter it into a deciphering program. However, if someone else can read the key when it is entered into the program, the confidentiality of the tax return has been compromised. And all the mechanisms that enforce confidentiality require supporting services from the system. The assumption is that the security services can rely on the kernel and other agents to support the data. Thus, assumptions and trust underlie confidentiality mechanisms. That's all. Because suppose you are going to be file the income tax returns. So that particular scenario is it's very confidential and it's very secret. So while you are giving to that particular one, you are not able to give the proper. You are able to keep confidential. So we are going to be use the cryptographic keys. Can enter into the deciphering program. That particular program means you are entering into the passwords. While you are showing the password is what? Say cryptographic key only. So for enciphering that particular one, deciphering the particular program, you are able to use some methodologies. That is only encryption and decryption. All the mechanisms that enforce confidentiality require supporting services from the system. The assumption is that the security services can rely on the kernel and other agents to supply correct data. Thus, assumptions and trust underlie confidentiality mechanisms. Unless and until you are not able to give the proper key for that particular system, you are not able to see the proper income tax returns. So whatever it is, because justice here it is giving the example of income tax returns because it is confidentiality scenarios. So this is the confidentiality because in each and every aspect of even in our life we are using this confidentiality. If it is this is proper, everything is going smooth. So another is integrity, trustworthiness of data or resources, prevention versus detection, blocking unauthorized attempts to change data or attempts to change the data in unauthorized ways. The second is much harder, right? Because blocking of unauthorized attempts to change the data or attempts to change the data in unauthorized ways. Because authorized ways is if you are going to be shown properly and you are able to do further. If it is an unauthorized ways, means illegally we are able to decrypt or the data. So that's what it is. Second one is much harder. Correctness versus trustworthiness of data. Of course, see how exactly the integrity is. Integrity refers the trustworthiness of data or resources, and it is usually phrased in terms of preventing improper or unauthorized change. Integrity includes data integrity, the content of the information, and origin integrity. The source of the data, often called authentication. The source of the information may bear on its accuracy and credibility and on the trust that people place in the information. This dichotomy illustrates the principles that aspects of integrity known as credibility is central to the proper functioning of a system. We will return to this issue when discussing malicious logic. Okay, because integrity is the trustworthiness of data or resources. That's all. This is integrity is completely trustworthiness. Means based on your trust. Take an example. A newspaper may print information obtained from a leak at the White House, but attribute it to the wrong source. The information is printed as received, preserving the data integrity, but its source is incorrect, corrupting origin integrity. The best example for this integrity is the present scenario of our social media. Trustworthiness, because in whatever it is coming on the social media, we are able to identify which is correct, which is not correct. Then only that is only the integrity, right? That's what it is giving an example. May print information obtained from a leak at the White House, but attribute it to the wrong source. The information is printed as received, but its source is incorrect. That's all. Corrupting origin integrity, preserving the data integrity. If whatever the message you received, maybe if it is correct, oh, it's okay. But if it is not correct, then so corrupting the origin integrity. There it is, the prevention mechanism and detection mechanism. Prevention mechanism seeks to maintain the integrity of the data by blocking any unauthorized attempts to change the data or any attempts to change the data in unauthorized ways. The distinction between these two types of attempts is important. The former occurs when a user tries to change data which she has no authority to change. The latter occurs when a user authorized to make certain changes in the data tries to change the data in other ways. For example, suppose an accounting system is on a computer. Someone breaks into the system and tries to modify the accounting data. Then an unauthorized user has tried to violate the integrity of the accounting database. But if an accountant hired by the firm to maintain its books tries to embezzle money by sending it overseas and hiding the transactions. A user means the accountant has the right to change the data, accounting data, in unauthorized ways by moving to a Swiss bank account. Adequate authentication and access controls will generally stop the breaking from the outside. But preventing the second type of attempt requires very different controls. So this is only the best example for prevention mechanism. So before going to face the problem, we have to be place some prevention. A detection mechanism. Do not try to prevent violations of integrity. They simply report that the data's integrity is no longer trustworthy. Detection mechanism may analyze the system events, means user or system actions to detect the problems, or more commonly may analyze the data itself to see if required or expected constraints still hold. The mechanisms may report the actual cause of the integrity violation. A specific part of file was altered, or they may simply report that the file is now correct. So the detection mechanism. Simple means prevention of violation. Do not try to prevent violations of integrity. And availability. Availability is denial of service attacks. Denying access can lead to more serious attacks. That is, credit card verification is done. What exactly the availability is? Availability refers to the ability to use the information or resources desired. Availability is an important aspect of reliability as well as of the system design, because an unavailable system is at least as bad as no system at all. The aspect of availability that is relevant to security is that someone may deliberately arrange to deny access to data or to a service by making it unavailable. System designs usually assume a statistical model to analyze expected patterns to use, and the mechanisms ensure availability. When the statistical model holds, someone may be able to manipulate use or parameters that control use, such as network traffic, so that the assumptions of the statistical model are no longer valid. This means that the mechanism for keeping the resource or data available are working in an environment for which they were not designed. As a result, they will often fail. So this availability refers what? Use the information or resources decide when and what exactly it is required. It's an important aspect of reliability as well as system design, because an unavailable system is at least as bad as no system at all. Alright, the simple, because it is an relevant security. Maybe deliberately arrange the deny of access or service by making it unavailable. So this is also we can face n number of times in our regular works. See here, it is an example is, suppose Anna has compromised a bank secondary system server which supplies the bank account balance. When anyone else asks that server for information, Anna can supply any information she decides. Merchants validates checks by contacting the bank's primary balance server. If a merchant gets no response, the secondary server will be asked to supply the data. Anna's college prevents merchants from contacting the primary balance server, so all merchants' queries go to the secondary server. Anna will never have a check turned down regardless of her actual account balance. Notice that if the bank had only one server, this scheme would not work. The merchant would be unable to validate the check. Attempts to black availability, called denial of service attacks, can be the most difficult to detect because the analyst must determine if the unusual access patterns are attributable to deliberate manipulation of resources or of environment. Complicating this determination is the nature of statistical models. Because in this availability, because here it is the simple, because it is in our regular work, we can use this also. Suppose you people are working in, most of the people are working in the commercial bank of Ethiopia, right? So in this commercial bank of Ethiopia, so how exactly in your daily operations, in those your daily operations, unless and until these three things, confidentiality, integrity and availability, if these three things are not properly you are not able to work anything, because these three things must be proper while we are working in the organization, especially related to the bank, or related to telecom, or related to um, immigration office. Suppose take an example of immigration office. This is must in the bank because it's related to the finance, related to the money. So it's must. So if these three things are proper, everything should be secure. So here some threats or attacks. Snooping, eavesdropping, modification means alteration, masquerading means spoofing, false reputation or denial of receipt, network delay, denial of service. You can see these are the threats. What exactly threats is? A threat is a potential violation of security. The violation need not actually occur for there to be a threat. The fact that the violation might occur means that those actions that could cause it to occur must be guarded against or prepared for. Those actions are called attacks. Those who executed such actions or caused them to be executed are called attackers. The three security services: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, counter threats to the security of a system, because this is only the threats. So based on this, because some violations need not actually occur for there to be a threat. The fact that the violation might occur means those actions that could cause the occur guarded against. So those actions are called attacks. Because for this, you can see here exactly it's snooping, modification, masquerading or spoofing, and reputation of origin, denial of receipt, and denial of service, denial of service. Here exactly what it is, you can see. Snooping is the unauthorized interception of information, is a form of disclosure. It is passive, suggesting simply that some entity is listening to or reading communications or browsing through files or system information. Wiretapping or passive wiretapping is a form of snooping in which a network is monitored. Confidentiality services counter this threat. Right, because in the snooping, unauthorized interception of information is a form of disclosure. It is passive, suggesting simply some entity is listening to communications or browsing through files or system information while you are monitoring. The best example for all these things, if you are working in the police department, these only their activities are. Right. The next is modification or alteration. An unauthorized change of information covers three classes of threats. The goal may be deception, in which some entity relies on the modified data to determine which action is to take, or in which incorrect information is accepted as correct and is released. If the modified data controls the operation of the system, the threats of disruption and usurpation arises. Of course, modification or alteration. Simple, the word itself it says modification or alteration. So if it is proper, it's good. If it is not proper, it is going to be face the different problems, different way of threats. And masquerading or spoofing, an an impersonation of one entity by another, is a form of both deception and usurpation. It leads a victim into believing that the entity with which it is communicating is a different entity. For example, if a user tries to log into a computer across the internet, but instead reaches another computer that claims to be a desired one, the user has been spoofed. Similarly, if a user tries to read a file, but an attacker has arranged for the user to be given different file, another spoof has taken place. This may be a passive attack, in which the user does not attempt to authenticate the recipient, but merely access it. But it is usually an active attack, in which the masquerader issues response to mislead the user about its identity. Masquerading or spoofing. This is only the way of attacking. So we are trying to access the other resources without knowing of knowledge of the user. So that is only how we are in active and passive attacks. This may be a passive attack in which user does not attempt to authenticate the recipients but merely access it. But it is usually active attack in which the mask warder issues a response to mislead the user about its identity. That is only the mask warder. Because spoofing, impression of one entity by another, and reputation of origin. A false denial that an entity sent something is a form of deception. For example, suppose a customer sends a letter to a vendor agreeing to pay a large amount of money for a product. The vendor ships the product and then demands the payment. The customer denies having ordered the product and by law is therefore entitled to keep unsolicited shipment without payment. The customer has repudiated the origin of the letter. If the vendor cannot prove that the letter came from the customer, the attack succeeds. A variant of this denial is denial by a user that he created a specific information or entities, such as files. Integrity mechanism cope up with this threat. Repudiation of origin. This is also while we are ordering purchasing in the online market. That is only we can face this. If you can use that properly, once you can select the item, and if you can purchase proper online, unless and until if you reach your product to your place, if everything is proper, it will be reached proper. If something is miss, so then it is delaying of your product to receive, unless and until it's clear your information. So that is only this. If you can face that particular one, this is only your repudiation of origin. Means false denial that an entity sent something is a form of deception. And denial of receipt. A false denial that an entity received some information or message is a form of deception. Suppose a customer orders an expensive product but the vendor demands payment before shipment. The customer pays and the vendor ships the product. The customer then asks the vendor when will receive the product. If the customer has already received the product, the question constitutes a denial of receipt attack. The vendor can defend against this attack only by proving the customer did, despite his denials, receive the product. Integrity and availability mechanism code against these attacks. Repudiation of origin and denial of receipt. This is also while we are ordering of the online product. That's what if you can see. Sometimes while you are purchasing in the online, they are giving an options: cash on delivery, credit card pay, PayPal, or something else. Means once you can pay properly, it will be good. And unless if you can receive the product properly. Sometimes while you are delivering the product, they will give an option for cash on delivery. Means while you are going to receive the product, you have to pay it. Some products you have to pay before purchasing only, because if it is based on the portal rules and regulations, some products they will give cash on delivery option, some products they will give the payment before deliver the product, like that. So if it is, that is all proper, how it is going to be work in the real time. So that is only the denial of receipt. You can face a number of times while you are using the online options. And denial of service, a long-term inhibition of service, is a form of conception. User patient, although it is an often used for the other mechanisms to detect deceive. The attacker prevents a server from providing a service. The denial may occur at the source by preventing the server from obtaining the resources needed to perform its function. The destination by blocking the communications from the server or along the intermediate path by discarding messages from either or the client or the server or both. Denial of service poses the same threat as an infinite delay. Availability mechanisms counter this threat. Alright, because if it is proper, then nothing else. If it is something wrong, then only we face the problems. Denial of service or delay means may result from direct attacks or from non-security related problems. From our point of view, the cause, the results are important. The intention underlining them is not. If delay or denial of service compromises system security or is a part of sequence of events leading to the compromises of a system, then we view it is an attempt to breach system security. but the attempt may not be deliberate. Indeed, it may be the product of environmental characteristics rather than specific actions of an attacker. So that is denial of service or delay may results. So if all these options, if the things is going smooth, we are not able to face anything. If some things is something going wrong, then only we are able to use all the types of applications, all the types of methods in different ways, what exactly, where exactly we are able to use. See, and another is policy versus mechanism. Security policy, statement of what is and is not allowed. That is only the security policy. Mechanism is method for enforcing a security policy. One is meaningless without the other. Problems when combining security policies of multiple organizations. So, security policy and security mechanism. Statement of what is and is not allowed. Method for enforcing a security policy. So, this is only because if it is the security policy is proper, it's good. The mechanism is method for enforcing a security policy. Because if you can properly implementing that security policy, then everything is good. So that's what it says. One is meaningless without the other. Problem when combining security policies of multiple organizations. Because see, here it is. Security policy is a statement of what is and what is not allowed. Security mechanism is a method, tool, or a procedure for enforcing a security policy. That's all. The best example is in your present situation of the Ethiopia. If the security policy is good, then security mechanism also if proper. There is no problem in your security of your present scenarios, right? Because security policy is a statement of what is not. Mechanism is a method, tool, or a procedure for enforcing a security policy. So mechanism can be non-technical, such as requiring proof of identity before changing a password. In fact, policies often require some procedural mechanisms that technology cannot enforce. As an example, suppose a university's computer science laboratory has a policy that prohibits any student from copying another student's homework files. The computer system provides mechanism for preventing others from reading a user's files. Anna fails to use the mechanism to protect her homework files and Bill copies them. A breach of security has occurred because Bill has violated the security policy. Anna's failure to protect her files does not authorize Bill to copy them. In this example, Anna could easily have protected files in other environments, such as protection may not be easy. For example, the internet provides only the most rudimentary security mechanisms which are not adequate to protect information sent over the network. Nevertheless, accesses such as the recording of passwords and other sensitive information violate an implicit security policy of most sites, specifically that passwords are users' confidential property and cannot be recorded by anyone. So this is in our daily life how we are able to manage the security policy and security mechanism. Here it is take an example of in the computer labs. So while you people are working in the computer lab, how we are going to access some particular files and folders, some particular system. So how it is, the administrator is going to be giving some security policy and some mechanism. Based on that, able to access the students. So here it is trying it all together, means the considerations because above appear to flow linearly from one of the next. Human issues pervade each stage of the cycle. In addition, each stage of the cycle feedbacks to the preceding stage and to the stage of all earlier stages. The operation and maintenance stage is critical to the life cycle. Breaks it out of his emphasize the impact it has in all stages. The following example shows the importance of feedback. The security life cycle. This is in our daily life everywhere. We can see this: threats, policy, specification, design, implementation, operation, and maintenance. Like software development life cycle. So here it is. There it is an analysis. Here it is threats. Based on the threats, you are able to give the policy. Based on the policy, you have to give the specification. Based on the specification, you will go for the design. Based on the design, next is in implementation. Then operation and maintenance. In each and every part of your this one, operation and maintenance is the very difficult stage. So once it is proper, then again threats, policy, specification, design, implementation, and operation and maintenance. That is only the security life cycle. Threat. Once first you have to identify the threat. Based on the threat, you have to identify the policy. Once you have to write policy. Policy, you have to write based on the specification. So based on the specification, you have to design. And then you have to design, then you have to implement that particular policy or specification, whatever it is. Then operation and maintenance. That's all. If these three things are these six pattern, six method, six levels, if it is proper, everything should be proper in the security life cycle. So that's what here it is giving an example. Here it is, see, a major corporation decided to improve its security in hired consultants, determined the threats and created policy. From the policy, the consultants derived several specifications that security mechanism had to meet. They then developed a design that would meet the specifications. During the implementation phase, the company discovered that the employees could connect modems to the telephones without being detected. The design required all incoming connections to go through firewall. The design had to modify the divided systems into two classes. Systems concerned to the outside, which were put outside the firewall, and all other systems which were put behind the firewall. The design needed to the other modification as well. When the system was deployed, the operation and maintenance phase field several unexpected threats. The most serious was that the system were repeatedly misconfigured to allow sensitive data to be sent across the internet in the clear. The implementation made use of cryptographic software very difficult. Once this problem had been remedied, the company discovered the several trusted hosts, means login without authentication, were physically outside the control of the company. This violated policy, but for commercial reasons, the company needed to continue to use these hosts. The policy element that designated the system as trusted was modified. Finally, the company detected proprietary material being sent to a competitor over the electronic mail. This added a threat that the company had earlier discounted. The company did not realize that it needed to worry about insider attacks. So this is also, this is not a, this is just giving an example here. Actually, this is where exactly we are going to implement the security mechanism. We have to follow these rules only. Suppose in your house also, if it is something is wrong, then only you are able to identify how we are able to secure your house. So this is an organization. Before going to implement some security mechanism in the particular organization, they are giving for the consultancy. The consultancy people will come and discuss about your organization structure, and based on that they are going to develop some particular software and they are going to be implement. How it is developed and how it is going to implement. Starts from development stage till end of that. That is only this. Threats, policy, specification, design, implementation, and operation and maintenance. So this is simple, very simple, because in each and every aspects we can see this security life cycle. If everything is smooth, everything is good. If something is wrong, then only the problem comes. So that is this small unit of introduction and overview.